Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dawn Hogan, the author of Unbroken Bonds. It's a fictional tale about 4 teenage girls who, in 1956, become lifelong friends when they're incarcerated in a home for unwed mothers. In this scene from chapter 15, Mary and her boyfriend Tony have just informed both sets of parents about their plans to get married because Mary is pregnant. A heated exchange has just ensued, and Mary's father has ordered Tony and his parents out of his house and forbid them from ever talking to his daughter again. Anthony Sr. took his wife by the hand and practically dragged her to the door while pushing his son ahead of him. As the front door slammed, Edith gathered the dessert dishes. "My God, Mary, how could you do this to us? We've given you every advantage. And this is how you repay us? By giving yourself like a slut to that uncouth jock?" "Mama, it wasn't like that," Mary cried. "His family is garbage," her father growled. "I knew that boy was trouble. I hoped you'd wise up and date someone with better breeding. Tony won't finish college. He'll turn out to be low-class swine like his father." Mary cried into her cloth napkin. Eventually, they all convened in the living room. The adults embroiled themselves in a heated discussion relevant to Mary's future, ignoring her. Her brother Albert, a pre-med Vanderbilt student, suggested, "Dad, I know some interns on campus. They could, do an operation." "No, I won't be party to murder," Mr. Atherton commanded. More alternatives were tossed around until finally Grandma Bernice broke in. "I think she should come back to Knoxville with me. Tell everyone I slipped on those confounded stairs of yours and broke my hip, so she's taking care of me. There's a home for unwed mothers only blocks from my house. She can go there." Bernice explained the benefits of the home. As a volunteer, she helped with the biannual fashion shows and praised their services. "The baby will be surrendered for adoption. When Mary's released, she'll have her high school diploma and can go on to nursing school as planned," Bernice concluded. They sealed Mary's future. She was going to the Francis Weston home for unwed mothers in Knoxville. On Sunday afternoon, as her bags were loaded into the back of Grandma Bernice's car, Mary pleaded one more time with her father not to send her away. "You were my star, Mary. I've never been more disappointed in my life." He slammed the car door and walked away. When they drove out of the city limits of Nashville, Mary sobbed uncontrollably. Now, it's not as bad as all that," Bernice told her tenderly. "Yes, it is. My life is over. I wish I was dead," Mary corrected. "No, you don't. Not really. It seems that way right now, but this is a temporary problem." "You don't know how I feel," Mary accused. "I know exactly how you feel. I've been in the same place you are right now," her grandmother consoled. "What? You?" "Yes, me," Bernice admitted, "but I was older than you. At 24, I thought I'd be an old maid. I'd been courted by a man for 3 years and came to believe if I got pregnant, he'd marry me. Well, I was wrong. My parents disowned me, and I had nowhere else to go. I, too, wanted to kill myself. And oh, wouldn't they all be sorry then?" "Does Daddy know this?" Mary asked, astonished. "No, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell him." "What about Grandpa? Did you tell him?" "Of course I did. It was your grandpa I turned to out of desperation when I was rejected by my family and my boyfriend. He and I were close friends. Your grandpa offered to marry me and raise the child as his own. The woman's oldest child was Mary's father, and she jumped to conclusions. So my daddy's illegitimate? No, my dear child, I turned him down. I did, however, accept his help to foot the cost of the Weston Home for Unwed Mothers, Bernice continued. Your grandpa was an extraordinary man and the love of my life. There's a lot of men who would consider you and me to be damaged goods, but your grandpa never did. I gave birth to a baby girl who I let be adopted. Your grandfather and I were married the day I was released. We had 45 wonderful years together before the good Lord took him. Why didn't you get married and raise the baby girl with Grandpa? Mary asked. I couldn't ask him to raise another man's child. You loved the father of your little girl, didn't you? I thought I did, but he broke my heart, hence my decision. I didn't want to look at her every day and be reminded of her father. I'll never love anyone the way I love Tony, Mary agonized. Maybe not. Maybe you'll find someone you love better, Bernice suggested. Mary sighed. For the first time since she found out about her pregnancy, someone understood.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I am DC, your host, and I'm thrilled you're joining us this week for another amazing author. Today we have the Fatherlessness Dawn. Hi, Madame. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I am great and excited to have you. And this is such a touching story. Like, I was tearing out for a minute. I'm like, oh my God. Let's jump in. What is this book about and what made you decide to write it?
This book came about because a really dear friend of mine brought me her adoption papers that were unsealed in the state of Tennessee and asked me if I could find her birth mother. And it turns out that her birth mother went to a home for unwed mothers in 1959 and surrendered her for adoption. Well, when I started reading about these places, I was like, oh my God. The number of women between 1950 and 1980, 1.5 million girls were sent to homes for unwed mothers. Roughly 90% of those were given up to sealed adoptions. This was known as the baby scoop era. Wealthy families would adopt these babies, and these girls were told to go home and act like it never happened. Don't tell anybody. There was no counseling. It was just a really devastating time in our country's history. Now, we've heard about like Philomena Lee, and that happened in Ireland, and we've heard about other places, but there's really not that much information out there that people know about the baby scoop era. I couldn't let the stories go. I read everything I could get my hands on, and I came up with this story about these four girls who remained friends after they've given up their babies. And as they rebuild their lives in the 1960s in the Deep South, they're each other's confidants and comfort. The friendship between women is very, very special. And you've got those friends that's always going to be there to talk you off the ledge. And these girls were that for each other. And as they married or went on with their lives and the things that they did, they were each other's support systems. So it carries on through their whole life. And there's twists and turns and a lot of laughter, a lot of tragedy. It really is about how they supported each other through a secret that colored every aspect of their lives.
This is such a huge topic that we don't talk about anywhere. There are
Right.
very few books about it. There are very few anecdotes anywhere. And you're talking over 1 million people whose life has been impacted, both for the child that was given away as well as the mother. And we're just brushing it away. We can't talk about it. It is this dark secret that how do you deal with that? How do you recover from that point?
Well, and that was the thing. I mean, all of the stories that I read, and I got to know women at Concern United Birth Parents and heard their stories. So many women came out of this situation, and because they were so put down, I mean, these homes told them, you can't be a good mother. You can't make good decisions. If you love your baby, you'll give it up for adoption. So many women went forward with such a negative image of themselves that they got into abusive relationships. They turned to drugs and alcohol. Some were suicidal. Others worked so hard to prove this stigma wrong that they went the opposite direction to being high achievers in their life, but still really, really miserable inside because they were holding the secret. And through talking to these women, I've now learned that that number of illegitimate babies that were given up in gray and black market as well, that didn't go to these homes, it's closer to 4 million.
You're looking at a piece of our history and our society as a whole that is almost brainwashing. Like you have to brainwash a young woman to give up her child by telling her you're no good. So now you have a person who is damaged by no fault of their own. And then you send them back and like, but now you're fine because you don't have this kid. Here you go. Are we doing anything better than we did 40 years ago?
This is really, really sensitive time. And if we don't know the history of where we've been, there's every possibility we're bound to repeat it. On the political spectrum, we have places that want to overturn Roe versus Wade. And if they do that, we're going to be back to homes for unwed mothers. We're going to be back to back alley abortions because they'll still happen, but it will be life threatening. And we will flood an already taxed foster system with children that these parents are forced to have and they're not able to take care of them. It's kind of a timely book at this moment because of what's going on. As far as it getting better, I've talked to a lot of adoptees and there's separation trauma there. When you grow up being told your mother didn't want you, there's damage done to that child. It's an ongoing thing. Now, granted, single motherhood has changed over the years. It's not such a terrible thing to be a single mother. And I mean, back in the 1950s and 60s, this was really shameful. Parents would hide these daughters away because it would shame their family. Nowadays, it's not so terrible to be a single mother. There are open adoptions. I don't have a whole lot of experience with those, but people tend to feel that's better because the child knows who the parent is. They understand the reasons, they see them, and they're a part of their lives in many cases. So, on the one hand, I think that's a little better.
I love the fact that you tackled this subject and brought it to life. I think one of the beautiful things about books is give everybody a safe zone to talk. It gives them a topic that is safe, that is not themselves, but yet close to home, that you can discuss it, that people can kind of bring to the table their fears and emotions and say, I have something to say. Can we talk about this?
I had one person that I knew in a clinical situation, and we always were swapping books with each other and always talking books. And she knew I was a writer. And I told her about this book, and she looked me square in the eyes and she said, when I was 15, I was sent to a home for unwed mothers in Nashville. I've never told anyone. And this just kind of makes it okay for you to talk about it. And she and I have grown very close since then because now she has somebody she can talk to about it.
Somebody who can and is not judging. I think that's the
Right.
key about this. It is the not judgment behind the words. Because sometimes we talk to people and they're not listening. They already have a dialogue in their head of all the things they want to say and how they feel about it, instead of just listening with that open heart to people that say, I am hurting. So, but kudos to you because this is huge. Like I'm tearing up just going through the process with you and I
Oh,
did
I'll,
not do the research.
I'll tell you some of this when I was writing it, I was just bawling. There's a section in this book that I cannot read out loud because I won't make it through it. And my mom told me, oh, I was crying so hard during that part. And I said, oh, good, because I cried when I wrote it.
I am a true believer our emotions come through the page. Anytime you're writing a piece and you have those emotions, people are going to feel it. And if you cry, they're going to cry with you because there's pieces that I've written and people are like, oh my God, I cried. I was like, oh, good. I was with you. I'm like, I was crying too. So it makes me feel better. You felt that.
It's good to know they laugh in the right places too, because
Yeah.
there is a lot of humor in this, and there has to be. There has to be a lot of humor in this book as well. Otherwise, it's just too heavy.
How long did it take you to research this?
Ooh, I wrote this in about 2006, and it probably took me over a year to write it. It was an ongoing thing, and editing it was up until the last minute. That was a lot of editing too.
You have done something that is so powerful and you give it out to the world. You created a piece that
Yeah,
people can connect with and truly read this and say, oh my God, this is what that piece of our history, and even more, this is what people are going out now. So I absolutely love it. Thank you.
well, and there's groups like Concerned United Birth Parents, which I love these gals. They really support each other and really help each other. It's a safe space for women to be able to say, this is what I went through. And they understand.
That's a beautiful thing. When you were writing the book and you finished this, because this is a huge piece, did you think this needs a part two? Or you're like, I'm done?
It's a standalone. It takes them through their lives.
Okay.
So no, there's no part two to it.
What are you working on now? Because I know there's something else that you're working on.
Right now, I'm messing around with a psychological thriller. I'm calling it Shattered Glass. And it's about a beautiful, gorgeous train wreck of a girlfriend. She is a sociopath, narcissistic girl who can take pleasure in ruining people's lives. And her name's Crystal. So hence Shattered Glass.
I'm loving the fact that you're taking what we all consider a villain and running with the story because it's really fun. Usually we only get to see them as truly, truly bad. Are you going to explore the reason she's truly bad?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't want to give too much away. I'm also thinking about another historical fiction book. At this time, I'm in the discussion with the Bessemer Library here. They want a grant discussing women's suffrage and all of the intricate things of that. It'll go from now through September. And we meet a couple of times a month and discuss a book about women's suffrage. That's a fascinating story. And again, I don't think that people these days give it much thought about what women went through to get the right to vote, how much civil rights is connected to women's suffrage. So I'm finding that very fascinating. And as I'm reading and in the discussions, I'm kind of like, there's a fictional book in there for me. I think that's in the future on the back burner.
I'm excited how you take such heavy topics and decided to bring them to life and translate it in a way that they can digest. So, Ms. Dawn, switching gears a little bit more about you, how long have you been writing?
Well, I really seriously got started writing in 2004. I messed around with it a little bit when I was in my mid 20s and, then life got in the way. But 2004, I really started buckling down and doing like NaNoWriMo, the National Novel Writing Month. So that's 18 years.
You say it like, huh, only 18 years. That is still a long time. Let's not downplay. You also have a lot of experience seeing how much our industry has changed. What is one of the takeaways that you have seen in all the changes that writing and publishing has taken in the last 2 decades?
The marketing part of it, it's not up to the publisher to do the marketing anymore. It is up to the author to really get out there, put themselves out there, sell themselves, and get people interested in what they're writing. So I think that's a huge thing that's changed. I think that the internet, oh my gosh, the internet is so great for being a writer. You can look anything up. I was writing this book. I wanted to know how long it took to get from Nashville to Memphis in 1957. And then it's like, oh, the highways weren't built then. So all the research that you do as an author is so much easier now. You don't have to go to the library. You need to make your facts real because somebody will call you out on it if you don't have it right. I appreciate the internet.
What is one advice you would give an inspired author?
I'm going to have to rely on something I'm going to steal from Stephen King because his book on writing was really, really good. And his advice, and I've followed this, when you're writing, don't worry about anything. Sit down, put the story in the computer, Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about punctuation. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about if you got a hole in your plot. You can fix it later because you're going to edit it at least 20 times anyway. So just get it down and then clean it up. That's the way I write. I'm a pantser.
I admire you as a pantser because I need an outline. I don't know how you guys do it. I was like, oh my God, I would be much more in the seat of my pants, like stressing out than anything. Where can our listeners find you? Where can they find this book? When they can learn more about you?
Okay, Unbroken Bonds is available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and you can find me at dwhogan.com. That's my website. I'm on Instagram, Dawn Hogan Author, on Facebook. I'm out there, easy to find.
Our listeners can find you. They can find the book. They can learn more about what you're working on and what's out there, which I love. And I could talk to you forever. And these topics are all passionate. So before you leave us, you ready for lightning round?
I hope so.
You got it. Easy peasy. Don't think too much about it. Desktop or laptop?
Laptop,
Nice. Caffeine or decaf?
caffeine, definitely.
Fruit or veggie?
Both, especially when you put them in a salad together.
I love it. Science fiction or drama?
Drama,
I should not be surprised about that one.
no,
Okay,
drama.
here's a little different. Let's see how you do. If you could have one superpower, what will you have?
Hmm. Be a fairy and be able to grant wishes.
That is a good one. I like. Awesome. So, madam, it has been an absolute pleasure. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me on. I listen to your podcast. I love it. It's down to earth. It's fun. And just thanks so much for, taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Madam, it is an absolute pleasure. Please hit me back up when you're ready with your next books because I have
Oh, I
stuck with
will.
one. So I need to know a lot more. And it is absolutely a blessing to have you. Have an amazing day. To our listeners, make sure to go ahead, follow Miss Dawn, check out her book, check out this incredible journey that she's going to take you on. Give us a review, give us a like. A huge shout out always to our Patreon for making this pod possible. If you guys want to join the Patreon community, the link is in the comments. And I'll see you guys again next week with another amazing author. Bye.